Everybody hear me? Yes. I'm really loud, so maybe I'll need the mic. I'm also tall, so this isn't. All right. If I look shorter, it's because of the mic. So how many people know who I am? Or have heard of me? Right. Some people hate my studs. Oh wait, I showed you where the room was now. Okay, so just in case, Zed Shaw, because people are going to watch this on Google Video, and I wrote Mongrel. It's a web server probably a lot of you all use daily. Some of you are probably hosting your sites. How many people are hosting their sites with Mongrel? Great. How many people utterly hate Mongrel? See, I do this as like feedback, so if you hate Mongrel, that's cool. I like that. How many people use FastCGI instead? How many people are kind of like Rails newbies? They're just kind of getting the kick of it. How many people hate Rails? Oh, yes, okay, I have a friend. So I missed the train coming in this morning because Amtrak has a problem with how they do their kiosk. Jeremy was very kind enough to get me a room and a train up here, and it's been great. And so far, I'm really glad you guys got me to come here. Tom organized a lot of this stuff. And I go to get my train this morning, and I'm really late. I've got like 5 minutes to get on the train. And you swipe a credit card, but he bought it. So I'm like, I don't have his credit card. So I swipe my credit card. He goes, okay. Type in the reservation number. Okay. Here's your ticket. You want me to print your ticket? Sure. Print ticket. That's not the right card. Well, of course not. So I run over to where the the line is, and no, it's 200 people deep, and there's no way I'm getting through. So I missed my train. Had to take a 10:03 express in, and had to buy another ticket. Totally sucked. Then I got the hotel room, and that's really great. Love that hotel. That's really good. In at Harvard or something like that. Anyways, in between that time though, I had to like work on the presentation. And so the presentation, as you can see, is my design skills are fantastic. I mean, you can't beat black lettering on white text, which is going to be good for the video. So before I start my discussion of what I actually worked on, and how many people have heard of Ubuntu? Okay, I'll go through it again, so only about half of you heard it. Before I start my talk about Ubuntu, and it's kind of a Ruby project, and there's a really cool Ruby component to it that all you guys can get in Mac, because all you guys have Macs, and the first client is being worked on in Mac. But before I do that, I'm going to go over some Mongrel competitors that have come out. So how many people went to RailsConf? Great. See, I'm asking these questions so I don't have to talk to you later at the bar. So. By the way, I'm not really this rude. This is all about being funny. Some guy was worried I was going to come here and cuss, and yell and scream, and kill a baby on stage in a satanic ritual. And he shaved his head, oh my God. And no, I'm not like that. It's an act. It's an act. So I'm coming to Harvard, right? So when I come to Harvard, I'm going to be a bit more professional. So anyways, the Mongrel competitors. If you all have internet access, I think the internet access is kind of a little on the weird side, but if you have internet access, there's one called Swift Apply, and it's by Kirk Haynes. And what that is he's ripped out the guts of Mongrel, replaced it with Event Machine, which is a way of doing like event-based I/O. And he's added a whole bunch of other little goodies and a nice little proxy and everything. And Ezra, I can never pronounce his damn last name, so Mightygoff or something like that. He's the guy over at EngineYard, and he's using it a lot. So he says it's really great, and he's getting incredible performance out of it. So that's something to watch out for. That has some licensing things with it, but I think they're cleaning it up. It was GPL, but it wasn't really clear whether it was GPL. But that should be getting cleaned up. Another one by Lucas Carlson is called Dr. Proxy. And I'm not sure if he's released it yet, but he's going to pull it out. He kind of showed it to me at RailsConf. It's written in Erlang. It's kind of like this paired proxy thing where there's a proxy in front and there's some little proxies in back, and then each Mongrel sits behind those. And he used it to, he works at Mog, and he used it to survive a Facebook blitz at Mog, and managed to keep his Mongrels up and running, and they were handling about 2,000 requests per second continuously over like weeks. And I think he had 38 Mongrels running. So that's pretty good. And that's without modifying Mongrel. This is just a basic TCP IP-based proxy, nothing added to it. And I think it took him maybe a week and a half to get it to where he was actually able to handle production loads. So Erlang is hot. You should be checking it out if you're into network code. It's on my list, but I know if I start learning it, I'll never do anything else again. So. And then the other one is this web server called Fuse. What they've done is they've taken the Yaws Erlang web server. It's by a guy named David and another guy named Majumbo. I'm not sure what his actual name is. And it's called Fused, but actually it's F-U-Z. And it says, think, and if you completely disagree with me, that's what I want to hear. I want you to go out and think instead of just turn on the bozo bit. Anyway, so FU said, I'm just going to call it that, because that's really what it's called, right? I mean, it's not fused, that's lame. I'm not just saying FU, man. Anyways, that is actually a full-on web server, and it completely replaces Mongrel, and then there's a Ruby backend. So kind of like an SCGI, fast CGI thing with yaws. So that's another alternative. And that's up on Google Code Projects. I think you can probably Google for it, and it'll come up. And that's another interesting one. Kind of waiting to see. I don't think it'll replace Mongrel, because a lot of you, I got cool screen too. A lot of you use Mongrel just for your daily development, so I'm not sure how you're going to store fire up Erlang and all sorts of other stuff. But for production deployment, that might be another cool option. And does anyone have any Mongrel questions? Or okay, cool. Let's get into Utu. So I was supposed to do this jelly bean experiment. I have a friend, very dear friend, and she said, apparently you can get people to guess a jelly bean, like all the jelly beans in a jar, and the average or the mean of the guess will be about 3% accurate. And this relates to Utu because Utu's trying to build up a reputation system where people vote on your reputation, but the problem is the voting costs. It has like a penalty to it, so you don't just vote indiscriminately. And it also votes based on this kind of hate. So I'm kind of giving you teasers, so you'd be like, what? What the hell? Hate? How do you hate people on the internet? Everybody hates people on the internet. I'm just making it cryptographically secure. But I didn't bring jelly beans because I was really tired, so I went and slept in the room, and I'm lazy. So you can all just say, hey, that Zed guy, F you, he just showed up, he was lazy, he didn't bring his jelly beans. But I'm kind of curious to try it out. So if any of you have classes or friends or anything like that, try it out, let me know the results. And then I'm also interested to try out the jelly bean experiment if people have to pay to vote, to guess. And does that improve the quality of your guesses? And I'm kind of basically testing this out in the Utu project. So,
there's a jelly bean store on the way to the bar.
Oh, nice. Okay. We'll have to try that out. We'll do it at the bar or something. Okay. The other thing, Utu is basically a chat system, but it's actually a messaging system. It's just chat is what everyone understands. And I'm trying to make it an IRC killer. I hate IRC. How many people here love IRC? They think it's the greatest. They get the best human communication on IRC. Right? IRC basically makes it so that completely wimpy dudes can go in and act like they're 6 feet tall, built like Arnold Schwarzenegger and carrying a howitzer. It's just unbelievable. I've never ran into an IRC room or a chat room or any of these things where there wasn't some guy on there, or maybe it's a woman too, I don't know, but someone on there just acting like a complete fool, an idiot, being obnoxious, booting people, and it happens to the ops or people in it. I just think IRC is this complete wasteland. It's like, it's real-time spam. It's just useless. And the thing is when I ask how many people like IRC, nobody raises their hand. Okay, the one guy, all right. There's always got to be that one guy. I love it, I love it. How many people like Google? Only half the room, what's wrong? How about, what was the other one they had? iPods. How many people like their iPod? Okay, lots of people like their iPods. Okay, when people say, I'm writing a Google killer, do you laugh in their face? Right, right? Because everybody likes Google, right? I mean, everybody just goes to Google. Browsers default to Google. How about iPods? Do you laugh in people's face? Like, I'm working on an iPod killer. Great, man. Right? I mean, you just, what do you mean, iPod killer? The thing's awesome, you know? It's like I'm working on a cheesecake killer. Wow, cheesecake's awesome. Why do you want to kill cheesecake? Now, someone says I'm working on a spam killer. Really? Wow, can I help? Someone's working on an IRC killer. I haven't really heard of too many people working on an IRC killer. There's one other project called Silk, but it's basically just encrypted IRC, and it's a very good project, very extensive. It's a completely different focus though. But I really want to kill IRC, but I also want to kill the whole social meme and the whole social system that's behind IRC. Right? So it's ambitious, but this is how you get to do cool stuff. Okay. And the way I'm doing it is with some bizarre crypto and some weird theories and some social network analysis, and it's going to be totally fun. I hope. So what I've come up with is there's 3 things that you're missing on IRC, or just the internet in general, okay? And there was actually a really great comment. I track how people get to the site, and then I go and I see how the idea is transmitted. And so far I found the majority of the people coming to the site are either with like, organizations like this, Boston Group, or some dude will whine and complain about bulletin boards or something like that, and then some guy will say, hey, Utu's trying to solve that. And then some other guy will say, well, that's retarded. The best that's retarded I ever heard was, but the internet's for being anonymous. And I was going to reply, and then some dude actually replied. He said, no, it's for transmitting data packets. Which is true, it's not for being anonymous. It just kind of was, that's how it came about. I mean, back in the day, before it became commercialized, it was actually, you knew who the sysadmins were. You knew where all the systems were. The military knew where everything was. If some dude got hacked, it was like, bam. Remember the internet worm that came out? What was that worm that wiped out like all of the internet?
Right,
which one?
Morse.
Yeah, exactly, Morse worm. They found him really quick. I mean, it wasn't that hard. It was like, what, 2 days later, they had the dude captured, they figured out where it came from, they had to analyze, they knew where it was. Now, the internet is anonymous because there's just tons of people on it, and their addresses change, you never know who they are, you can't control any of the boxes. So, the old way of doing stuff was that the server was king, the client was just kind of a beggar, okay? And the problem is that shifted. So now, all the clients can just deluge a system with everything. You can get one, I can take my laptop and take down most web servers with just simple TCP/IP connections and overriding, working their SSL stacks, attacks, anything. So the internet's shifted. The problem is all the protocols that are still being designed, and you can go look at the IETF's latest proceedings, but all the protocols are still being designed as if the server has this unlimited, Atlas level strength to block the internet, and block all the idiots on the internet and all the denial of service attacks. And I guarantee that there's a guy in Russia laughing at them right now, making his bot farm of 100,000 people make them cry. There's people who get paid money to stop these kind of things. So, the first thing that comes up is strong identity. And this is actually a really hard problem. It's philosophically a difficult problem. You folks just kind of say I'm Zed Shaw, but there's all sorts of weird, it's based on evidence and whether you know me, and it's just strange. And there's all sorts of bizarre things behind it. But I would like to make that stronger identity. Right now we have almost like it's not even anonymous, it's almost the inverse completely of identity. So I want to make this stronger. So the Utu network is going to try and make identity stronger. The reason why you need stronger identity is so that you can build up reputations of people. So if we have a reputation that's attached to you, and that reputation is cryptographically secure, and that reputation is analyzable by people not even in Utu, but externally, maybe off REST interfaces, then maybe you'll stop being such a jerk. Okay? Okay? Maybe you won't, what was it, the Kathy Sierra thing? I mean, maybe, just maybe, if we can track that dude down, or maybe he's like, oh man, my wife might find out. He wouldn't have acted that way, okay? And then finally, retribution. Now I gotta tell you, I'm a peaceful guy with a temper, so I try to be very peaceful. But I worked the math, and I worked all the statistics and all this stuff, and I'm sorry, love just doesn't work on the internet. It's gotta be about hate. The threat of hate. It's got to be, you have to start throwing police officers in there, you got to get Gestapo. But I'm changing it up. It's hate for good, and you'll see how. It's going to be changed around. So how many people are anarchists? They hate authority. I'm the only one. I'm not here. Okay. So, the cryptography. So I go through this first, because there's always, I guarantee there's a dude here, or anyone in here who's better than me at cryptography, okay? I did not write any of the stuff I'm using. I'm borrowing everything. Rule number 1, 2, 3, probably 10, 15, and maybe 100 is do not write your own crypto, right? There's people who get paid lots of money to do this. They really know their stuff. Do not invent your own security algorithms, your own authentication, none of that stuff. You borrow, okay? So for me, I borrowed a library called libtom. Really great stuff. It's a C library, pure C. It's got 2 math libraries that are fast as all get out. One's using a lot of assembler, the other one's just using pure C. And then it makes a cryptography library out of it. It's got everything. It's got Diffie-Hellman, it's got all the different crypto systems. It's a very liberal, nearly public, public domain. Thank you. Public domain license. You can use it, but just don't sue him. And it compiles everywhere. It's great. Very small. It's awesome. So I use that. In it, I'm just using AES, elliptic curved cryptography, SHA 256, and notice all the sizes match. That's one big thing you got to do. Then I'm using 128-bit random nonces. So these are rotated on every message. They start off random, they rotate from there, right? Then I'm using this mechanism that uses only ECC crypto, no signatures, nothing else. It's very, very simple. It also hides the person's identity and matches identity to their key, which is very important. And there's this vulnerability they found in it. This is classic. The ISO publishes something and then the dude's like, oh wait, that's broken. So it's without the Helsinki vulnerability. Then I'm using the way the messages are encoded and encrypted is CCM. AAD is additional authenticated data. So anything that's not encrypted, like headers that have to be read before the message is processed. And then I'm using the Fortuna pseudo-random number generator. So Fortuna just basically uses AES to generate random stuff. So I seed it with the real random number generator and then use that. So any questions on this? Yes? Okay.
You're using AES and elliptic curve cryptography? Like, are you doing one mapping the other or something like that?
Yeah, so the ECC is used just for key establishment and identity establishment because it's a public key crypto. And then in some parts it's for signing stuff. So proving that this person did certain tasks and stuff like that. The actual symmetric crypto, which is AES, is just for the message passing back and forth.
Okay.
And then the CCM does the message integrity, the hash, the HMAC processing, and AAD, make sure it's not tampered with, make sure that the tags come out right based on the nonces. And I did not write any of this, I'm just using it. I read a PDF and it says do this, and I go, okay, I do that. So that's all I'm doing. So the protocol, I've kind of been on this kick lately that I hate HTTP. Now, can anyone figure out why I might hate that? It's been a year writing a web server trying to implement it. Yeah, that sucks. It's a horrible, horrible, horrible protocol. How many people have tried to write an HTTP client? A few people. Okay. So when you handle that client, did you know that people can actually put SSL certificates in a header variable? And you have to be able to handle full multi-line header variables that actually aren't multi-line because the headers are supposed to just be line ended. Oh, you didn't know that. Okay. You can thank Microsoft for that. Okay. So the problem with HTTP, from the get-go, is framing. HTTP 1.0, back in the day, had this great framing mechanism. Connect, do its stuff, close. That was the frame. So frame is literally that because TCP has multiple packets that it's transmitting, and sometimes the packets get a little wonky, you might send 5 bytes and then 100 bytes and then 16K. You have to be able to tell the receiving end, the other peer, how much are you going to send. Okay? There's a classic problem. Every single TCP/IP protocol and most UDP protocols have this exact same problem. How much am I going to send? What's the application's message size? There's other things like message routing and things like that, but it's debatable whether that's framing or not. So in HTTP 1.1, they wanted to make it so you could keep the connection open, but still have the connection open-close semantics. Oh, and still have the 1.0 people. So now in 1.1, you got this framing mechanism that's bizarre. It's chunked encodings, keep-alives, pipelines, line parts, and just about 5 or 6 different methods. And nobody can really decipher them, and they're totally bizarre, right? So in Ubuntu, it's simple. It's 2 bytes. The peer is going to send that. It's just an unsigned integer and network byte order. So when the peer connects, it says, hey, I'm going to send you 10K. And the other peer goes, all right. And that's it. That's literally all you need for framing. Now, it could get a little more complex than that later on, but right now, this is working great. Because the next step is I use this thing called stackish. Yes?
Send the version number first.
No, get to that. Get to that. The 2 bytes is literally just to say, I'm about to send this much data. That's it. The stackish format is actually the whole body. So the framing has nothing to do with the versions and data and what's in it. It's just literally this is the framed message, that's all. And then you parse this out. And stackish is a consistent format. And even if, say, the client version changes or the crypto changes or anything like that, stackish changes it. Now, stackish is some weird, it's bizarre. But anyways, I came up with it as a joke, as an alternative to XML, and you'll see why it's pretty funny. But then I found out, wow, it's actually kind of cool. I like it. And it's just elitist enough to make sure that not everybody can contribute. Great. Not only do you have to like S expressions. Who loves S expressions? Who thinks XML was like the dearth of all Lisp? Awesome. Okay. Yeah. Mine are 4th stack-based S expressions. Top that. You see what I mean? That's elitist, man. It's like, oh, you do Lisp. Anyways, okay. So the thing is by using stackish, it's really cool because you get all your data structures in the right order for the computer to process them. This is something you'll see in a second, and I'll go over real quick, but people are interested and I can show you. The parser is tiny, tiny, tiny. We're talking, you can actually write a parser in about 100 lines of C code. It's very small. Mine's a little more robust to handle errors and whatnot. And it handles all the exact same data structures that you get from an S expression. So you can have S expressions that are added on as attributes, which is something you can't do in XML. You can also get, what am I pointing at? Oh. You can also have it so that it's a series of stackish structures and they get put into one, and it's really great. And then I just use it and boom, all my problems with versioning and order and whether the formats and whatnot, they go away. And it's also very, very easy to interact with. So the whole data message is 2 stackish structures. The first one is an unencrypted header, which would be where the version would go, sequencing numbers, any of the other classical header stuff. Right now, all I've got is a sequence number because there's nobody really using it. 16, 17 people. And then the encrypted body. And the encrypted body is actually, the stackish gets encrypted and then wrapped again in stackish so that it's consistent. I'm just using one single data format for the whole thing. Did anyone see Black Snake Moan? Okay, I'm 12 then. Anyway. Actually, I had Stackle Loop, but then my friend's like, dude, Stackle Loop. Anyways, so here's stackish. It's S expressions. It's the exact same theory of S expressions. I just inverted them. Okay, I was kind of on a joke kick, and there's actually a blog post where I just kind of go through it. And it was a total joke. So I saw these people doing these weird XML alternatives, but it's really simple. If you look, the S expression is the second line, and then the equivalent is on the top. It just goes in the inverse order, and those braces there start a group. Then got a number and then a quoted string, and then that ping, you don't need a closing brace. It just assumes if I see what would be like an atom in S expressions, it's ending a group. And so then, boom, that one, that one, that one, you're done. And so it's the exact same as that S expression there. The XML would be if you had a message tag, a system tag, a ping tag, that data in it, and then message, ping, so on. Very simple. It's incredibly trivial to parse. The additional thing I did, and this is actually one of the guys in RSA, I forget which one, he created a version of S expressions that had this exact same capability, where you can create what's called a net string. You prefix the size, and then you just have the data. This lets you do binary strings for like when you're transmitting encrypted data or images or things like that. So by having a blob type, I call it, I can basically put anything I want in there. I can even wrap other stackish in stackish. And this is very, very important because one of the problems in cryptography, especially when you're using XML, is that you have to sign and hash these data structures that can get reinterpreted because there's not really a standard on it. So the process of making the XML so that it's consistent, everyone has the same image, is canonicalization. In stackish, I don't worry so much about canonicalization because I can just say this is exactly the data you have to sign, or this is exactly the data that was encrypted. And then it's opened up, pure blob, that gets hashed, decrypted, verified, and then interpreted. So it's a nice set of armor. Does anyone know who GJB is? Dan Bernstein. Yeah, okay. So Dan Bernstein's a really cool guy. He's got a QMail, and he's also, I believe he took on the US government for being able to publish his cryptography online. So, really cool guy. Also, apparently a pain in the ass, but I've never met him. Sorry, Dan. So, then I had this problem. So the vogue thing is you want to do peer-to-peer, right? Everybody's doing peer-to-peer. It's the new cool, right? If you haven't written a peer-to-peer client yet, you just can't even really talk to people. Who's written a peer-to-peer client? I haven't. They're lame. Totally kidding. The thing is you can't trust peer-to-peer. One of the problems is I'm trying to create a system that enforces certain forms of retribution, identity, and things like that, and people need to really trust it. Peer-to-peer, it's really difficult to make it where I can trust other peers in a distributed system because I don't control their computer. Once data hits their computer, it's theirs. There's nothing I can do. And there's all sorts of people who try to solve this problem, and it just becomes either infinitely complex, vulnerable to attacks, or it becomes pretty much impossible. They don't really solve all the issues. So I went back old school. I'm going, forget that, it's a central server. It's a hub, and peers connect with spokes, as spokes. So peers just talk to a hub, the hub marshals everything, boots peers who don't behave right, enforces the hate calculations, does everything from the hub. And when I say that, people go like, oh my God. Why are you using that? It's not going to scale, it's going to be attacked. One thing to keep in mind is that I'm trying to design the protocol from the ground up to be resistant to attacks. Now it's impossible because the way the internet's designed, you're just kind of screwed. If someone wants to hit you with 40 billion servers and they've got the juice, they can. What I've done though is I've done certain things. For example, I showed you I had that ISO mechanism. I've actually inverted it. Because it's a peer-based mechanism, I can actually make the client do all the crypto first. So when I have some guy connecting with thousands of clients, he's got to really work hard because he's doing all the crypto beforehand. And I can verify the crypto because I'm using ECC and make sure that whatever they're sending me is valid very easily, very low cost, and boot them and block that key. Little things like that. So it's not saying that you have to have 20 servers to handle X load. Why not start with the protocol just defending itself, assuming the internet is full of crazy freaking morons with lots of computing power. And they hate my guts. Right? Because they do. I mean, they really hate me. Seriously. So what the hub does, and then there's a kind of a trick here I'm doing. The hub is still a peer, so everything is the same. All the people talking are actually exactly the same as the hub. It's just the hub is a special peer. This hub is what everyone trusts. It's what everyone talks to. It's what everyone manages with. So what the hub enforces is you get your hate, you get your behavior. So I'm going with Dan Bernstein's rule. If you just boot clients the second they do anything wrong. And this comes from my experience with Mongrel. Mongrel had a very, very, very strict HTTP parsing algorithm. It actually used a real parser, which is novel. Apparently nobody thought of this. I don't know why. And people were really pissed off because they would have these clients that would just fail. And I said, well, what are you trying to do? And they go, well, I'm trying to do this. And I said, that's not in the standard. They go, yeah, but it works with Apache. And one day we're sitting there and I was working on a project with VeriSign and they had the model running and someone just slammed it with security attacks. And Mongrel was blocking them because they were all violating the RFC grammar that I put in. So I didn't even have to do any security stuff just because most of your security attacks in HTTP seem to dance on the edge of the grammar where the ambiguity is in the HTTP grammar, where the protocol isn't really well defined, or where the standard isn't defined. And because most web servers had been really forgiving, because there weren't so many like networking programmers and the internet was new, so what the hell, we're gonna be really nice. You can find these areas, you can find these holes in. So by simply saying, look, I do not care. If you can't connect to this server, go home. And if you close the connection, that's one more layer of you can't mess with the hub. So it's layers, you're adding more and more security. No security is perfect, but the more crap you add to it, that just makes it difficult. It makes it more expensive. Versioning, I haven't done the versioning yet, but yeah, there's gonna have to be a versioning capability in this because there's probably gonna be different people connecting. But I have a plan on that, and you'll see in a second. It's kind of fun. Authentication and authorization and auditing. So this is your classic 3 things you have to have in security. The auditing is actually going to be, I'm contemplating making it public, where there will be just chat room logs and everything. People can grab them with web servers and whatnot. Because the whole idea is that if you behave, then people will know that you have a good reputation. But it's debatable. It'll probably be optional. So the mendicant. So everyone knows the WPA supplicant. It's this program you run because WPA is horrid, and the best way to talk to an encrypted Wi-Fi network is through this supplicant. It knows how to build a hole, right? Okay. So I was afraid that might be trademark or patent or whatever, so I went and found the thesaurus.com and what's a synonym for supplicant, and it came up with mendicant. I was like, cool. That's like a priest. It's awesome. Okay. So what I did is, when I first did the Ubuntu client, very first Ubuntu client, it was a Ruby client, had a C binding. Awful. It was horrid. It was just the worst thing possible. It was thousands of lines of code. The code to get the C binding in Ruby was longer than the actual code for the entire hub. Right? So I kind of peeled that back, and I said, you know what? All I need is a program that compiles, does just enough I/O to talk to this, whatever program needs to talk to the network, and then talk to the hub, and sits between your client and the hub, and does all the crypto and stuff, and takes the exact same messages. And so I came with the mendicant. And what you do is you fire this thing up, and then you pass it the same messages you want to go to the hub, and it does all the crypto and figures out where your keys are, and then talks to the hub and sends you back. There's some security concerns on this because people can hack it. So right now it's only on Unix systems that have domain sockets. I gotta find the equivalent in Windows, but that's the only thing limiting Windows. So with the domain sockets with the mendicant, it was cake. The code went from thousands of lines of Ruby and C to 500. It was nothing. Trivial. All you have to do is open a domain socket, do a little bit of parsing. Parsing stack is just cake. And we can see it in a second. The one big thing is that you don't have to do C bindings. That's really hard for a lot of people. I'm envisioning people will be able to start this thing up and basically just talk to the Ubuntu network without any trouble. And there's actually folks who've done it already. And the biggest thing, though, is that it's ruthlessly GPL'd. And what this means is, let's say someone finds an attack. They have to use the code from Ubuntu probably to figure out an attack or find a way to game it or mess with the system. Well, they usually have to go through the mendicant. Now they can pull the code out, put it into a different system, but it's GPL, they have to release it. If they modify the mendicant, it's GPL, they have to release it. So the GPL is really not because I love the GPL or anything like that, but it's mostly because it's the best license to make people release things that they write. Now, if it's criminals, of course, they're not going to care. I'm not going to be able to sue them. But if it's someone who's like, oh, I figured out how to do this, well, they have to release their code, and then I can fix the hole. So this is kind of one more layer. It's a social layer, though, more of a legal layer. I've even toyed with having a trademarked phrase that's put in for different versions randomly. And then if people use it without like this implied license, if you use the mendicant, you get to use the license, then I can sue them with trademark law. And then all my lawyer friends said, you're a freaking moron, that'll never work. So I was like, fine, do that. So now there's this big part. Do people have a grasp of what Ubuntu is yet? It's literally chat. It's really all it is. But what I've added is, you know who people are, you have like a good sense of their identity, you're gonna have pictures, all these things. You have a way of finding out their reputation. All this info is gonna be stored and kept somewhere. So you can decide who you want to talk to based on their reputation. You can even set things up so that you just don't hear from people who have certain levels of hate. And then there's retribution. And the retribution is done with the hate system. The hate system is literally this enforced hash cache. How many people know what hash cache is? It came out as like a spam fighting solution. The idea was that I give you some kind of crypto, and I say, calculate this crypto. Now, it's a weak crypto, but it makes you do some work. And then you have to sign it with your key, and then you come back to me. I go, cool, you did some work. And then I let you do whatever I need you to do. So the hate is basically that. Let's say I hate you. I go, the hub says, all right, you hate that guy, how much? I go, 16. It goes, calculate some hate. So I go through a random, I'm basically going 2 to 16, some random number in that, find it, I paid it. Then from then on, he goes to you and he says, you pay 2 to 16 because Zed hates you. And then there you go. You just keep paying it. And every message you send now has this throttling on it. If you don't like that, you can disconnect and just not talk on Ubuntu. Now, what's interesting is I have no idea what this is going to do, how it's going to work. The crypto's there. Crypto's working. It works fine. I was playing with it, and it's probably going to be there. But I don't know how it's going to work socially. I don't know if it's actually going to have any impact. I don't know if it's going to make people change it. I don't even know if that's like the right algorithm. For example, there's weird things. Someone asked me, do people know when you hate them? I said, well, yeah. I mean, what kind of wimp are you? You don't want people to you hate that guy. It's about reputation. And part of your reputation is whether you hate people. Whether you're walking around with a smile on your face and a dagger in their back, right? That's a part of your reputation. So yeah, they know you hate them. What does that do though? If they know you hate them, when they get these fights, you get these revenge battles, you get the balkanization of the network. I don't know. I'm kind of curious to see what happens. So the main thrust with Ubuntu is what will happen. What will happen when I have this thing and there's some people using it and they get into doing the hate and they start moving their networks and their chats and their personal friends over and stuff. So part of that is I'm going to start doing some social network analysis. Now, I hate social networks. The websites that probably half of you guys are working on where it's like I join up and I have friends. Okay. That's not social network analysis. I did graduate work in social network analysis, and social network analysis is an incredibly hard graph algorithmic problem, and there's all sorts of things involved in it. And then it's a mixture of statistics and sociology, because you really don't know who really knows who. So with Ubuntu, I'm planning to collect a lot of data of who talks to who and in what qualitative ways. Do they hate them? Do they not hate them? Because I have a hate system that people are willing to use, I'm actually able to get one piece of information that most social networks aren't quite getting, which is how, when I'm interacting with someone, do I really hate them? And it's hate in a way that I paid for. I mean, this is real hatred. Yeah?
Sorry, a quick question. I'm a little confused. And I know you said you're not quite sure exactly how it's going to work yet, but So the idea is if I don't like somebody, then I have to do some computation that takes me time on my processor in order to state that I don't like that person.
Right.
But the other person, every time they send a message, has to essentially do that same amount of computation.
Right.
So it takes me very little effort to cause them a larger
Yes.
amount of effort.
Except, so what will happen is, and let's hold the questions a little bit, right? Because I'll go to it. But what happens though is, there's a difference between point-to-point communication, where you just send me an IM. It's stupid to do hate then. I'll just block you. Okay. I'm talking more in rooms. So the problem is in rooms, if I say I hate that guy, and there's 100 people in the room, I can't have tyranny of the minority. I can't have that guy just instantly you get 16. Okay, but I can't have tyranny of the majority where a bunch of people vote. So the making everyone pay tries to solve the tyranny of the majority. Making it so that there's an average hate per room you're in that you have solves the tyranny of the minority. So it'll be that you may get everyone paying 16, 5, 10, whatever, and then you have maybe a 6 or an 8. So it's not as bad. It basically, this computer can do an 8. It's just 2 to the 8. You can do it in a few seconds. But the thing that you run into is on personal levels, it's probably not that big a deal. When you're talking big spammers, big denial of service guys who go in with a giant bot farm and try to attack, you've got some controls. I know their key. It's invite only, so I can boot them. We can actually transfer the hate from someone you invite. If you invite a jerk, you get part of his hate. You can get your hate back by booting that guy off the network. Things like that. Social pressures too. So the thing that you're in that I don't know about is when I throw these terms in, one, how can they be gamed? I'm positive they'll be gamed at first. And two, what will people do with them? So the social network analysis I'm planning to do is to see pre-hate and post-hate, how do things change? In a quantitative level. And if there's any sociology buffs, what I'm going to do is there's no hate right now. People are going to connect. I'm finishing up the last 2 features to make the system functional without hate. And then I'm going to start getting people to use it, start polishing up the clients and doing all the good stuff. And then add hate and see how that changes up the network. I've gotten together a few groups who might change over. And I want to see what happens. I'm pretty sure there's going to be guys who just hate this project, just destroy it in a day. But I want to see what happens. I want to see where does the thing go. And this is mostly just the research part of it. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, that's right.
I'm also curious, what happens if I put everyone's info on like a REST interface? So at the moment, only people in Ubuntu can figure out, that this guy's just really not nice. Not that you are, I don't know. So if I put it on a REST interface, well now you get some really cool stuff. Like blogs can actually say, do you have an Ubuntu ID? Oh, your average hate is below this, and these are the clicks you're in, and you know these guys. Great, okay. You can blog, you can comment on my blog. They don't have to talk to Ubuntu or get in there, nothing. All your interactions are done through Ubuntu. All the data is collected off of what you do with Ubuntu. But the actual data, the results can be broadcasted out. People can use that to find out who you are. So you can basically give them your Ubuntu ID as a way of saying, hey, I'm a good guy. So right now, there's a few clients. And if everyone wants to play with it, we can do this too. I'm over here. Let's see if this still works. I just put this up, so if you guys crash it, then leave that. Did that say hi? I don't even think you read that.
Is it lower right? Yeah.
Doesn't work. That work?
Yeah.
Okay, so Mike Basnight got a hold of me and he said, oh man, I like the Ubuntu idea and I want to learn Ruby Cocoa. So this is a project you guys could probably get in on. He's looking for some help, and it's kind of cool because he managed to register IHateRubyForge.org. That is smooth. David, I don't know why you did that, but that's great. Of course, I then find out from my lawyer friends that Apple sues anyone who has I within about 10 feet of their. So this may not last. I may be poor, thrown in jail. Anyways, it's not Mike's fault. Yeah. What I was going to do is it's actually a parody of iChat. And since parody is really well protected. So right now there's like some samples in the source code. One's called tap. I use it to just test things. because the protocol is so simple, I can literally like type the messages out and they go along and stuff like that. And then there's a simple TK client. Most people are basing the clients off of TK. So if you're Ruby fans, you can actually go grab the source code, and I'll show you the repository in a second. And you can actually grab the different sample clients and mess with them. They've got all sorts of bizarre things going on. And the protocol and the API that I've done is very, very, very simple. It's a push-pull. You push a message out, you get them back. You don't have to know Stackish. You actually just have to know how to structure a series of hashes and arrays. That's all you need to do. It's a little on the cumbersome side right now, but we're trying to clean up the whole data format, make it like easier for Ruby folks. And it's pure Ruby too, so as long as you can compile the mendicant and then you can run the main sockets, you can pretty much connect and do what you need. So it runs on Linux, on FreeBSD. It doesn't run on PowerPC yet because I'm a moron and I had an Indian issue. So why not PowerPC just die? Then I'd be happy. And then basically you can play with it. But the coolest one is iHate. Now the thing is, iHate is a Mac app, and I hate Macs. So I don't hate them, but you know, I don't have a Mac. So grab the client, and if you want, log in, and you basically just can pick. It'll pick whatever your ID is, and then you might see some folks coming in there. We'll try it back in a second. Works pretty good. It's really simple. And then there's a guy who's working on the C# one, maybe. How many people are big C# fans? Man, I'm in the right room. What's interesting though is when we present this, when I tell people about this, and I say you can use any language, right? Because of the way the mendicant's designed, the way the hub's designed, how everything is so very simple. The first thing they say is, wow, can I use Lisp? Can I use Haskell? Can I use this? Like, yeah, use whatever you want. You know, I'm actually in the process of building a thing that uses a hub that sits in my house and then does like distributed builds. These build farms that go off. And I got like a FreeBSD box and a little Mac Mini, and it just uses the hub to say build, and they all build. The protocol is very generic. It's not just for chat. It's good for messaging. You can actually just have generic message routings and whatnot. And the routing is based on pattern matching. So when you send a Stackish structure that has certain nodes in it, it just follows the node shallow structure and sends it on. So there's no queues and no weirdness about it. You literally just register for different routings based on the types of patterns you're interested in. So that's very Erlang-ish, Haskell-ish, even a little bit of Lisp in there. So it's very straightforward. The code is tiny. The C code is well documented, small. Hub and client together is, I think it's 6,000 lines right now of C code. And that's lots of comments and stuff like that. Fully documented, and it's exported out. And you can get to the code with darks. You can also just download different cars. Everybody's really tired, huh? Am I that boring? Who thinks I'm boring? All right, Lisp dude. Don't beat me up. So, the demo. So let's see if anyone's in there.
We can't get our.
Yeah,
Oh, freaking Harvard. Isn't this a nice TK window? Yes.
I need 5 minutes to download off of this.
Yeah. Okay, so try it out later on. The hub's up. Sometimes it goes down because I'm a bad programmer. And then sometimes it stays up and you can chat and try it out. So what's working now is it's fully encrypted. It's fully authenticated. It should keep your key around, so then when we start doing invites, I'll be able to get track of whose keys came through the system and send out invites and whatnot. There's also a Google group. You can go to Utu Protocol and join up. And right now it's kind of doing this weird thing. And that's to keep the thing up because apparently I'm on Rails Machine. I got a box donated by Bradley Taylor over at Rails Machine. And they kill idle TCP/IP connections. It's a really common thing. So I was like, whatever. I left it for a while, but people got really annoyed. So now it goes ping, ping, like every 20 seconds, make sure it's up. So that should work better. But I was just, you guys don't need to know about that. That's why there's big numbers on the screen. That's the amount of hate. That's how much people hate me.
So this Google group, is there an IRC channel?
Yeah, you're looking at it. No, I hang out in almost all the IRC channels actually. I'm Zed AS. So you can just ping me, ask me about it, whatever you need help on. And the Google group mailing list and emailing person too. And so this is the Darks repository. Has anyone used Darks before? Yeah? Darks is pretty cool. Darks is a little slow though, so I'm trying to optimize this so you can download what's called a partial. You grab this and then go get some coffee for a little while and you'll have your stuff. And what this does is there's some build instructions. The project is very well documented. Always make sure, whenever you do an open source project, number one thing is documentation. I actually do the documentation first. Most of the time I do docs first. It's almost like I do documentation for new development. And so when you grab this, and there's one other project, this Myriad thing. If you want to build the server, grab Myriad, you install it, grab Ubuntu, install it, you'll get the hub. Play with the hub, do what you want. Totally GPL code, completely open. That's the only way to do security. If you don't do security that way, so people can look at it and check it out and find bugs and find defects, then it's just not even worth talking to people. And that's one very good litmus test. You can grab the software, the source code here. If you just grab this, then you get the menu kit. You can try out the TK client and all those different things. One warning, if you can try out the TK client on your Mac, is ports, the Darwin ports thing, Mac ports, whatever you're calling it, screw ports, whatever. It doesn't install TK when it installs Ruby. So you have to basically do gymnastics around your room and pray to some god and then eventually get TK. So try it out on Linux if you want to try TK. Otherwise grab iHate and play with it. And then you can join the group and say, hey, do you want to work on iHate or whatever? Or you can just say, wow, that was really cool, I'll wait until it actually works. And then I'll cry, I won't like any of you. This is the iHate project page. And this is the documentation. I should warn you, hey, if you have a problem with cussing and slightly offensive language that probably calls out some of you guys the way you interact on the internet, then don't read these pages. So what I will do though is I will go over to the, yes, you can read that while I try to get around it real quick because I meant to be on this page. Do you guys actually want to read this? Okay, because no one has internet. You guys read all that? Yeah? All right. Am I crazy? Possibly. That's where all the good stuff comes from. Hey, Oscar Wilde had syphilis. Working on syphilis? No, I'm not working on syphilis. That's rude. Okay, so what I've done, another aspect of security is being very transparent. So one of the problems is that a lot of people can read C code, they can't go through all this crap code. So what I've done is I've tried to describe the whole thing as best I can, but I like to rant. I have to rant. Okay, so this is a mixture. It's supposed to be entertaining. It's not a specification, it's a description of what I've written. You don't get a spec in this. And so what you get in this is I go through quite a lot of different things and I just talk like I know what I'm talking about, and then I go through the protocol, and I cover the ISO. See, look, this is the only reason why you should be on this project, because I'm funny. Wait, am I funny? I don't know, anyways. So what then you can see, if anyone's familiar with the ISO layer, basically this is where I'm placing, framing, the parsing and the semantics. So the stackish is your parsing level, and then what the hub does with the stackish semantics is your semantics. I'm actually designing the protocol the way I think they should be designed, which is following more compiler theory, which has something like 20 years of mathematics behind it. Protocol design has 5 books, some guys that hack. And so if you go through the design of the document, if you're interested, this gives you a high-level overview and samples of how everything works. And this is actual code that's taken from the stackish form. This is all of it. And then that's the grammar for it. So that's what's great about stack-based data formats, is they're very, very easy to process. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that computers are based on stacks. So it just kind of works better to have the format already in the stack. If anyone's taking compiler theory, what that does is with S expressions, you didn't have to worry about the syntax, right? You didn't have to do bizarre permutations to get a syntax tree. By inverting it, making it stack oriented, you then don't have to worry about the tree structure. It's already in tree structure. It's already in the right order. So I literally just walk a tree and build as I go. I don't have to do anything else. So that's why it's so quick. It's in memory, I'm building this complex data structure, and I don't have to do any of my own stacking or organizing or shifting or pushing or anything. Just walk a tree. And then that's the entire actual code. There's some C code behind this, but this is what happens when stack gets processed. And then there's some examples of it being chunked. And then how it will come out, and so on. And I hear everyone yawning because it's totally boring. So the big things, and I've already kind of covered this, so I'll go through this very quick. How am I doing on time? Good? Okay. There's the unsolved mysteries. So I'm not doing Utu really to replace IRC. I would think it'd be great if that happened, but I'm doing it mostly to get people to think about it. This is why I like coming and talking about it, not because I'm an arrogant jerk who really likes to talk. Okay, I'm an arrogant jerk who likes to talk, but I want everyone to also go and think about these problems. How are you designing your protocols and your sites and your systems to handle the social problems that are coming out there, right? These things that you create. Are you putting stuff out and really thinking about how, you know what, the world is not full of flaky, kind hippies who run around singing all day long. There's some evil dudes out there, okay? So you got to think about that kind of stuff. And so a lot of the unsolved stuff, I've solved a lot of the base crypto and how the hub will operate and all these other great things, but I haven't solved identity, and nobody solved identity, so I'm giving my best shot. How the invites work. There's a really weird problem I ran into with invites that it's kind of strange, but how gate works, and then how I'm going to do the analysis. So with identity, and it's really hard to explain, but really there's no way to really prove who you are to begin with, but on the internet it's even worse, right? So I'm contemplating things like doing what a lot of the VeriSign, RSA, those guys do, where you come and you actually prove who you are, you have identification, or because you use a credit card, things like that. But I'm hoping that just the invite system adds some kind of level of clarity or quality to who's who. You'll join up, you'll put pictures up, your buddy invited you, and then maybe I'll offer a reward if you rat someone out who doesn't have a picture of themselves up, right, or the wrong picture. I don't know. This is totally up in the air, and I'm open to suggestions about it too. Is how do you get people to validate identity without making me spend lots and lots of money and traveling around and all that stuff? And also, it shouldn't cost you anything. There's a weird thing with invites. So everyone's got some Gmail, right? Okay. Well, Gmail, you had a buddy, got like a gigantic key. Gmail said, yeah, invite that person. Great. And then you got it, you invited yourself. And then what'd you name yourself? Super Snappy Dog 45. Right? I mean, you name yourself whatever, but probably your first name, right? It's not that big a deal. So when I first sat down and started writing the invite system for Utu, I said, okay, so the person doing the inviting has a key, and then the person who is getting invited has a key, and then I can validate who has keys, and they can both sign, and then boom, they're invited. I went, wait a minute, they're not invited yet, how do they have a key? So then I started thinking about it, well, wait a minute, they actually should have a key. They should have some kind of key, they should have declared who they're going to do. This actually adds to their identity. So on the invite system, I'm actually contemplating where it'll be kind of this three-stage process where you beg, you mendicate to get onto the network. That makes a little ticket. Your buddy gets on, says, yep, that's him, that's the key, he's going to come in, that's his picture, that's all that. I certify that invite, and then you come back and you actually get on the network. So it's something that I don't really know too many people have said, invites are broken or anything like that, but I'm thinking in a system like Utu where there has to be validated keys and verification of identity, having an insight system that's like a three-way handshake is a lot better. But I'm open. I don't know what's going to happen. I'm actually going to implement this probably this weekend, see how that works. It may be too complex. The hate system. So the hate, I've got the cryptography working, the math working, that's all great. But I don't know how the social system is going to work, or how the actual, is it a mean based on who you're talking with? How does it track it? There's all sorts of other things. I'm going with simple, and then eventually we'll complicate it after that and see how it works. And then the social network analysis behind it will help me determine what kind of changes I need to make to the hate system. This is all one part of the auditing process. So one thing that you got with this is there's some really weird questions. When you get into start doing social network analysis, you can actually tell people, hey, you're a lot like these guys over here, and these guys are in a clique. These guys are probably a bot farm because they all act at the exact same moments. They all hate the exact same guys, and they all talk the exact same way. So those guys are probably a bot farm. And what I want to do is have this system that just dumps this data, so you can actually get in and find people you might be interested in, and also the client can just say, hey, that guy can't talk to me because he's probably in this other clique, and everyone in there hates me. So improving the quality of your communications by just using this in network analysis. And then, every time I talk about this, the first thing that a geek says is, you're creating a technical solution for a social problem. Okay, no I'm not. I'm solving a technical problem that's caused a social problem. So the problem I'm solving is that internet technology originally was great. It was based in the DoD, DARPA, and universities, but then it got released all over the internet, like a massive, nasty virus, Ebola, I don't know. And it flooded the internet with complete jerks. But people still write their protocols, and still write their websites, and still write their servers, and still come up with their ideas, as if they're in the old DARPA network, where they knew who everyone was, and everyone was their friend, and everyone was really nice to them. And so what I'm trying to do is, even if Ubuntu is a complete failure, I'm hoping that at least it gets people thinking in terms of the server is not the king. The server is this windy, pathetic little thing that can be wiped out by a Russian botnet. That no, there aren't nice people out there. We need to have throttling controls. We need to have auditing processes. We need to have ways of getting rid of people who are kind of jerks on our social system. And a lot of this comes from me researching things. For example, anyone here use Lambda Mu? Okay, did you know there's a rate in Lambda Mu? Okay, I don't know how it happens either, okay, but regardless, they envision Lambda Mu in almost every other experiment in social interaction on the internet that I've seen, with the assumption that everyone's going to be really nice. Everyone loves my software, and everyone loves my project, and loves the community. The problem is, there's sociopaths out there, right? Just go look at your police blotter anytime you want to find out what kind of people there actually are out there. And so because there were no ways of booting people, there were no arbitrage systems, there were no rules, there were no community decency laws or anything like that, people could get away with this kind of crap. And it was hard to get rid of them. So what I'm trying to do is basically, I don't want things to become Nazi autocratic, but I think it's got to get away from this anonymous, you can do whatever you want, great, because China might be snooping on 3 dudes in Beijing, right? Or you want to trade your porn for free. I don't know. Not that you do porn. What I want to get back to is, you know what? In a community system, you've got to have identity, you've got to have reputation, you've got to have some retribution, you've got to have some threat for acting out and being bad. And I'm sorry, I tried to work around it where you could have love, but it just didn't work out. And questions? Yes?
By associating Ubuntu so strongly with the word hate, I know you worried about branding and like kind of the marketing aspect of it, like getting people to accept this. And,
Yeah.
like, is there are core concepts behind it that are not about hate, but are just about like control over who you interact with. But you've latched on one keyword, which I don't know, it seems like it threatens to like turn people's heads away from what you're really trying to do.
Probably, yeah. Well, I mean, the one thing is that I tried to work out how love will work. And the problem is that you can't really do the love system because it has to be some kind of cost. Anyone can set up a bot farm to just generate tons of love. But nobody wants to set up a bot farm to generate tons of hate, right? Because they get penalized and it costs them and people find out about it. So it just turns out that, and it's not, I'm basically saying it's not my fault, I'm sorry.
Well, my question is only one of branding, really.
Yeah, it is branding, and I'm doing that on purpose because when I originally came up with the idea, and this has been going on for about 3 years, 4 years, whatever. When I originally came up with the idea on IRC, people were like, so what? Hash cash in the chat, I don't care. When I said, you can hate people, they're like, really? Remember, what am I trying to kill?
IRC.
IRC. What kind of people are on IRC?
Very hateful.
Okay. Now, I do want to see if maybe I can create, because this system will be a very self-regulating system, a very nice system. If you want a really good description of possibly probably the best reason for having a system like Ubuntu around, go to the DevChicks website. Just Google DevChicks. And this one woman, I don't remember her name, but she wrote a really good post about why it sucks being a woman in tech. And if you read through that, it's pretty much the same stuff I'm saying. Guys are just ruthless assholes. It's just kind of the way she's putting it. And I'm sorry, we kind of are sometimes. I mean, that's kind of the way we get used to it, but on the internet, I don't know why. I don't know why people act that way, but it's just the way they do. Even I act that way sometimes. It's really easy to get like that done. So by putting the hate in there, yeah, I mean, I kind of don't like it, but that seems to be working. That's usually what people like on it. What I have said though is, if you don't like hate, think of it as distance. You're pushing that person further away from you. That's a different way of looking at it. Yes? That involves you doing some like analog to hate with your own machines means that the whole system's canceled out because you can just set up the same bot farm to kind of cancel, get rid of your own hate. It's invite only, so you'd have to get a new key from someone. And if they don't know your reputation, then your friends will be like, dude, you're kind of a jerk. I want to give you another key. Okay? So you're kind of stuck.
What about letting it fade over time?
Yeah. What I've thought of, either it would fade over time, there'd be a cool out period, maybe some other analysis on that. Or I thought what I would do is get charities. Charities could set up their own kind of federated hub that's approved. And what you would do is you would go do some work for them. And then once you did the work, that charity would say, that dude's cool, he did some work for us. Exactly. I apologize because it's, I love people and I want them to like me. Right? No. But I actually think it's better to do something for someone you've wronged or you've hurt or something like that. So I like that idea a lot. I'm not sure how to work out. Maybe I could say at home guys and try it out with me first, but that's the general idea going on. But again, I don't know. I mean, it's probably going to be a trickle down eventually. And then maybe you take a week off, you come back, you're a good dude. But again, also then your reputation comes around. So then it comes into problems of reputation. I mean, I like the idea that you can come back and you're a good person and it shows on your reputation you did some good stuff. Yeah, he's a jerk, but hey, he helped out, the Salvation Army. So, all right. Did that answer your question?
Yeah.
Any others? Yes.
What if a group of people wants to take down someone famous?
Zed Shaw.
Zed Shaw, yeah.
Zed Shaw. 1,000 people get together and say, we're going to just all take Zed Shaw and take him out.
That sucks. There's not a whole lot I can do about that, but based on the social network analysis, you would actually be detected. You'd be seen as a click or a call. And then you actually, boom, hit Zed Shaw with all his hate. And it would be recorded. So people would know that a bunch of jerks got together and hated Zed Shaw. And also, it's based on the room I'm in. So, I just go to a different room, go somewhere else. And nothing prevents, it's not my hub. That's one thing I really want to make clear. People may trust my hub more because I wrote it, but you guys can also run your own hubs. So I plan on people branching out, just like IRC. Yeah?
You just
I'm sorry. Can I go?
Oh, yeah.
It seems like there might be more subtle categorizations of reputation than just desert the level of hate that's research, right? Like, it's sort of analogy, right? The analogy to realize that somebody might be reputable with respect to their advice on farming, but not skydiving. You don't want to ask the wrong person to assume just because they don't have a high level of hate that they're reputable in their end.
Right. So he's basically saying that you have different reputations in different areas. For example, I know everything about astrophysics, and I don't. The thing is, though, remember, I'm basing it on per room and per your interactions. So in one room, you may be totally hated, and in another one, they may love you. And then there's also going to be, there it goes. There's also going to be an analysis that's going to be done that's going to dynamically figure out who you actually like. This is something that I'm very interested in doing. It's going to be based on your interactions, dude. You actually should be over hanging out with these guys. Or this guy is actually more of a red hat guy. I don't know why he's in the FreeBSD group. He's a red hat guy. So that'll be interesting to see how that changes your reputations and whatnot. In the back, did you have a question? No. Okay. Anyone else? Yes.
What do you think about OpenID?
I actually worked on OpenID. So the project that we used Monroe with was the VeriSign OpenID project. And I like OpenID because it's something everyone can understand and it's fairly well solid. And the only thing I don't like is it's based on DNS. So DNS is easily spoofed and altered and whatnot. The DNSSEC standard is supposed to fix that, but I've been reading lately it doesn't really fix it. So I actually think that for identities, it's probably going to be a buildup of evidence. So the more stuff you provide, the more likely you are who you say you are, and then maybe OpenID might be a part of that. If you can authenticate off an OpenID, then okay, maybe that's you. But otherwise, I'm really not sure how to pinch into into. It's going to have to be a side thing. Yes?
Do you think about adding some kind of intelligent degree into the head system? Because there are more stupid people than intelligent people. So it's very likely intelligent people will be hacked by a lot of stupid people. You should add some kind of intelligent degree. Let's say that you are more intelligent than certain.
So you have to take an IQ test? And then you get clustered based on IQ?
You are some kind of
That's really elitist. I like it. Actually, I would backload that. I would go in the inverse. What if we take all the people who are just utterly hated in all these different systems and then see what their IQs are and what their ideas are and what they're going out? And is there a correlation? I would actually take it more from a research perspective. Because that's the big myth, right? Oh, they all hate me because I'm Einstein. No, they hate you because you're a jerk. I mean, you know.
Just give them a rule.
A what?
Give the most hated people a rule.
Yeah.
Be very quiet.
Exactly, yeah. It's a room, you only get to talk once every 5 minutes. Quiet room. Sit on the naughty pad. Yes?
Well, I'm almost afraid to ask this because it seems like such a silly question. But how does somebody using this cast hit? Like, is it a matter of checking asterisks or something? How does that actually?
How do they do it? So it's basically some simple crypto. What it is there's a random number, 2 to say 16. It picks the random number and then some other bits and it hashes that. Okay? And then you get a hash. So then you're told the other bits and the hash, but not that random number. And so what you have to do is continually hash those pieces that kind of prove who sent it to you and everything with potential, like, okay, is it 1, is it 2, is it 3, is it 4? And this just takes time and it takes computation. It's just they can't get around this.
I understood that part of it, but then everybody has like the same level. So how does, like, let's say I want to be at level 8. How do I do that?
Yeah, you can just say,
Specific.
I can say, I want to hate him at a 2 to 8, or a 2 to 32, or a 2 to 16.
User interface question?
Say again?
I guess, yeah.
Oh, a user interface question, I'm sorry. That's something I'm not sure yet, because we actually haven't implemented it. But it may simply just be, it's not something you chat. I actually kind of want to have people's pictures on the side of the chat window. And I want to make them upload 4 pictures, like neutral, happy, mad, sad, right? So you say, say you jump in Ruby on Rails and you ask, how do I make a blog? And all of a sudden, mad. You guys hate me, right? So it really more along those lines. I really like the idea of adding faces to the chat. It's going to happen, right? And I know some people are really going to be against that. They don't want to put their face out there, but look, everybody's ugly, man. Just get over it, okay? And so what might happen is maybe it'll just right-click on that person and say, hey, there might be a little button or something. It basically just be, I have to see, I don't know. If you have ideas about it, I'd be curious. You're saying like asterisks or something like that. No idea. Yeah, okay. Well, talk to me afterwards. See. Yes?
And maybe one of the things you could do is instead of just making their computer do some work with crypto, you could send them a puzzle so they have to do something.
Yeah, Sudoku.
How long it takes the puzzle.
Solve the Sunday New York Times. Right. Yeah. No, the thing is it's these ideas that I'm thinking about. It's like building systems from the get-go, so there's sender pays. Right now they bolted on afterwards, building systems right away with crypto, right away with authentication. So yeah, if you got it, you could probably do like a blog poster thing. If you really don't want people to comment on your blog. Yeah.
So what about hardware crypto as a way of making the blockchains easier to do? You can use hardware crypto to make your heat less powerful.
Well, LibTom doesn't use hardware crypto, so that's one advantage. But people can replace that. The main thing though is to keep in mind that I'm not making it impossible for you to talk, I'm making it expensive. So it's about predator-prey scenarios. You can either come onto Utu, where there's, it's really hard, if you have lots of machines to be as much New Jersey as you are, or you can go back to IRC. So it's kind of just mostly making it expensive. Yes?
You'll be right on.
Okay. That's the end of the questions. Time to go. And everyone's yawning, and it's like, man, I'm so boring. But I really appreciate you guys coming. I didn't have a thank you slide, because I'm total jerk, so you get a 5 minute.